Bases dropped on Tuesday Thoughts here on SDH AM. John, hear you there. Thanks for dropping by, as you always do. The show is stacked, as it traditionally is on Tuesdays. Kacey White's going to be joining us in just a little bit, and we'll break down everything in NWSL and colleges and see if she's got any thoughts on what's going on in Major League Soccer. Speaking of Major League Soccer, about 9:40, Max Anderson, the play-by-play voice for the Chicago Fire on WLS AM 890. WLS, for those of us that had Clear Channel radios, back in the day when we actually had radios. 8:90 a.m. He's going to be joining us about 20 till, and he'll take us to the top of the hour. We're going to look at Berhalter year one, the playoff series against Philadelphia, what he thinks about the East. 10 o'clock, and this one's really cool. We had this one plotted about a month ago, and it is a chance to find out how a group based in Birmingham, Alabama, is developing a multi-club ownership model. And it is worldwide. Trust me, it is worldwide. You're talking everything from Sweden to England to Ireland to Togo and all points in between. Benjamin Boycott, the CEO and one of the founding members of the Trivela Group, is going to be joining us for a bit to kind of break down how a group based in Birmingham, Alabama, went about being interested in soccer and the multi-club model and what they're looking to build from it. And so we'll catch up with Ben Boycott, founding director and CEO of the Trivela Group, at 10. And then after that, it's our weekly conversation with Jason Stevens and the economics of soccer. We get to go into the UEFA and the courts, and they are joined at the moment at Think Twice. And also we're going to be discussing the ideas in and around changing profit and sustainability rules in the Premier League and where those may go as well. And we do kind of dip our toes in the water a bit about Sheffield Wednesday and Mike Ashley as well. So that conversation coming up after we catch up with Ben Boycott at 10 o'clock Eastern time. So it's KCD, it's Max Anderson, Ben Boycott, Jason Stevens. That's today here on the morning show. We also we're going to look at juice boxes for Champions League, go through the news of the morning and transfers and things like that after we catch up with Jason to wrap up the show. Right now, U17s are going on. Mexico escaped a red card in the first half, and they are down 2-1 to Korea. We'll give you the scores in the U17s. Remember, tomorrow is the U.S.'s first day of the U17s, and we'll catch up with them, and we'll let you know what's going on with the U17s across the landscape as we go. So that is part and parcel of the day that we've got going on here this morning on SDH AM. Just to kind of give you an update as to what it's looking like for the remainder of the week. And morning, Alex. Morning, Abby. So let's see. Tomorrow it is going to be catching up with Tyler at 9:15 to look at everything from his perspective in Major League Soccer. Hopefully we'll catch up with the busiest man in the Northeast, and Dylan Butler at 10 o'clock. And then we'll break down everything, getting you ready once again for Champions League and the rest of the day on Wednesday. Thursday, Chris Doran's going to be joining us in hour number 1, and he'll break down match day 2 in Hell is Real, the postseason edition. And then that'll lead us into the Power Hour with Nino and Nico. That's going to be on Thursday. Thursday off the show, we're going to be catching up with Kate Ward from the U.S. Women's Deaf National Team as they get ready to chase after yet another gold in the World Cup in Japan at the end of the month. And I don't know if you saw the announcement yesterday, but this is the last ride for a lot of folks, including the coaching staff and 3 of the stars, including Kate. So we're going to catch up with Kate and find out about this run, getting everybody together for the last dance. And we'll have that discussion coming up on Thursday. That'll be available on your podcatchers, on social, and on Soundbites, then all of that. Then Friday, Lucas Panzica from 104.5 The Zone in Nashville is going to be joining us. He's going to be leading off to let you know about match day 3 involving Nashville and Messi and friends. Then we'll see if we can catch up with our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring. I don't know if Mr. Parkhurst wants to have any kind of a discussion about Florida State and Wake Forest. I don't, considering we won our first game in American football since we filed the lawsuit with the Atlantic Coast Conference. So I'm just going to take that as a win. I'm not going to revel in it because of the season that Florida State has had. Not going to happen. And then we'll find out who gets to join us for Major League Soccer, 10 o'clock. Will Pelagic, play-by-play voice for Charlotte FC, is going to be joining us at 10:30 on Friday, and we'll break down match day 3 for Charlotte and NYC. And that'll get you into the weekend, and we're off and running. So that's the rundown for the week. That's a lot of stuff. And so we're going to start it off here on Tuesday with our opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And let me see if I can find the QR code here quickly. There's your QR code brought to us right there. Once again, Abby, thank you for giving that to me so I could actually post it and not have it be small. That's your QR code to kick off your day at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. You hit that QR code, you go in, you buy out the store. We recommend that you buy out the store. Then when you buy out the store, you use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10% reinvested into youth games, youth initiatives brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And so this morning, it is the question that we bring to the table every once in a while, and we'll probably bring it to each of our panelists this morning when they come in and they're asked the question, are you Team Messi or Team Ronaldo? And the reason that we bring this back up is because Cristiano Ronaldo, CR42, or however many years he has clocked with us now, he still might just be CR41. He was in an interview with a host overseas, and once again, the discussion came up about who's the best player. And so he, meaning CR41, answered the question, as he is wont to do. And the question was, is Messi better than me? I disagree. I don't want to be humble. So he reiterated his belief that he is a better footballer than Lionel Messi. During 2008 and 2017, it was once again the two of them having Ballon d'Or at Barcelona and Real Madrid. Once again, you have this debate that comes up every single time it comes through. Ronaldo's won 5 Champions Leagues compared to Messi's 4, 5 Ballon d'Or, pale in comparison to Messi's 8. Both have led their countries to glory on the world stage. Ronaldo, Portugal to the Euros in 2016. Messi, Argentina in 2022 on the cup that the entire world chases. So once again, in an interview, Cristiano Ronaldo makes the point that he is better than Messi. I don't want to be humble, and that's one thing that Cristiano Ronaldo has never been. Sorry, he's CR40. I've overshot. So he is CR40 right now at Al Nassr. So CR7 is CR40 in our view. And once again, the modesty that Cristiano Ronaldo has coming to the fore, tongue firmly planted in cheek. So he has said he's the dude, and Messi is not. So, and let's see. So Abby, I'm guessing Abby went to Paul McCartney at some point. Ricky, I mean, yes, and yeah, I mean it is. And to Ricky, to your point, yes, that is the correct answer to give if you are that individual. You're not going to surrender that title to anyone else because that is part of the bravado that you need to be a player of that status and stature. You need to be that confident about yourself. You're not going to sit there and say, yeah, I think he's better. No, you're not going to do that. But, once again, you're continually asked this, and you're going to give that answer. And it is up for the rest of us to sit there and be either Team Messi or Team Ronaldo. I am Team Messi. I am not Team Ronaldo. Yeah, yes. Ricky, athletes are irrational. All the greats are, yes. Well, I mean, it's irrational. It's confident. It's cocky, depending on the individual. And so it is choice D, Ricky, all of the above. And so we'll bring in Kacey D, and we'll ask her this question, too, as it's seemingly the QOD on the day. It is we have to find out what camp she's in because I don't think we've ever asked her this question. So first off, Kacey D, where is young Owen, by the way?
Oh, he's down here at my feet, like always, just hanging out. He feels a little embarrassed. He was rude last week, didn't say hi, so he's just chilling out.
When is Owen ever embarrassed?
He's not. You're right.
It's just one of those, don't wanna. It's the don't wanna gene.
Very fair.
In opening kickoff this morning, the question was raised once again by CR40. and he was in an interview with a host overseas, and he was asked if he was the better footballer or Lionel Messi. And Cristiano Ronaldo, of course, said that he was. And this once again stirs up the debate of who's the best one and what camp you are in when it comes to following Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi. Which camp are you in of those two?
Okay, I'm going to flip this on you. What camp do you think I'm in?
Oh, boy.
You've known me a little while now. What camp do you think I'm in?
I would think that you're Camp Messi.
100% Camp Messi. 100%. So.
Why?
I've got a couple things. A lot of it has to do that I did grow up an Argentina fan as well, because I was.
Now, Jason will love you hearing this. So go, Kim.
I love Diego Maradona growing up. I watched like old VHS tapes of like the World Cup and, when he won and all those types of things in Mexico City. And so I just always loved Argentina. So there's a little bit of the heart with just following Argentina. But I think in and of himself, Messi being able to do the things that he could do, navigate traffic in midfield, score goals, provide, like just his all-around game to me, I am a huge fan of. And so I always have considered him the greatest just because of his all-around game.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where we are for the most part. There are those in the Twitch pitch and some of our OGs that are Ronaldo types. And it is, when he gets to 1,000 goals, the thought from one of our OGs this morning is hopefully we give him his flowers. I would sit there and say, dude went to Saudi Arabia and padded his stats, but that's just me as being a part of that message.
I really respect Cristiano Ronaldo's game as well. Obviously, one of the greats, an amazing goal scorer, athletically, technically, what he can do in and around the goal is unbelievable. But I would agree with you. And I think for me, it's not always just about the stats piece. It's like, how do you make teams around you tick as well? The fact that Messi can do that anywhere he goes, whatever he does, and makes everyone else better as well, I just think propels him.
All right, so that was the opening kickoff this morning. When we have something that is that glaring of a thing, but to the point of, you're not going to sit there and say, yeah, the other guy's better. I mean, that's just part of your own personal DNA. It's like when you were at North Carolina, when you were representing the country, when you're doing all these kinds of things, you're not going to sit there and go, yes, somebody's better than me. Players aren't wired that way.
No, and I think a lot of it comes down to preference too, for fans and for people watching the game. But yeah, if you're going to be asked, if you even think you're close, you're probably going to say yourself. So I don't fault that, whatever. I mean, how many years ago was it that Zlatan Ibrahimovic was asked who his starting 11 in the world would be, and he put himself in every position? Like, everyone's wired a little bit differently, and you have to be at that level and be that unbelievably great.
Absolutely. So that's the question I think I'm going to be asking everyone this morning, what team they're on, and we'll have that in the Twitch pitch also. NWSL was one of the marquee things I wanted to bring you in because we now have officially had Decision Day. How chaotic was it for you on Decision Day dealing with all of the math and the possibilities?
It was somewhat chaotic because I was on Angel City, Chicago, that did not have any playoff implications. It was the last game for Kristen Press and Allie Riley, two greats of the women's game. So that was nice and they both were able to get in the second half. So that was nice to be on the call for that. But most of what our coverage, I was with Joe Malfa as well, who does a lot of NWSL. He's the lead play-by-play for ACC men's soccer, and he'll be doing the College Cup. We did a lot of live look-ins of all the games, goals that were coming on, and things like that. So it was a different type of coverage for us, wanting to give, due to the game we were on, also to the two players retiring, but looking at the playoff implications. The biggest thing that happened really early was that North Carolina Courage went up very, very quickly on Gotham, which, not that it was unexpected, because we all know that the North Carolina Courage can score goals, they can figure it out, but they've had an up and down year, and Gotham has been in really good form. So once that happened, everyone around the league knew for the playoff line, Racing Louisville had to win, because it became pretty evident very early on within the first 20 minutes that the North Carolina Courage most likely were going to pull out a win. So that was the big one to watch. After that, it just became a matter of shuffling from 3 to 6. And figuring that out in game was like my brain was going, but we stayed with it pretty well.
And the way that it does end up, it was Kansas City, obviously from pillar to post, 21 points clear of everyone else, which is just staggering when you think about it. And in 26 matches this season, goals against of 0.5, giving up 13 goals all season long in the regular season, and a goal difference of plus 36, which is also borderline insane. Washington at 44, they finished second. Portland by 1 goal in goal difference, which is also another part of the math that was taking place. You're going, oh my God, Portland and Orlando, it's the same record. What are we doing? And you're looking at scores. You literally are looking at scores in that aspect. So Portland at +7 over Orlando at +6. That's your 3-4. Seattle at 39 finishes the 5. San Diego finishes at 37 points. Once again, 10 different to the good over Racing Louisville. And then Gotham is your 8 at 36 points. Before we get into like individual matchups and everything, what does this say about the NWSL where you have Kansas City that is all the way over here, and then you have the chaos basically of 3 through, and I'll go ahead and include Carolina, 3 through 9 when it comes to the competitiveness of the league in and of itself, where you have Kansas City, then you got Washington, and everybody else trying to chase into the playoffs. How competitive is this league for someone who hasn't seen it?
Unbelievably competitive. The only difference we're seeing this year is it's not 1 through 10 necessarily. Kansas City, as you mentioned, has really gone out way ahead to be, for an understatement, of what they've done. But the thing about this league that is so exciting is I watched like a North Carolina Gotham matchup this year, and I'm thinking going into the final week that Gotham is in too good a form. Like North Carolina doesn't have a chance, and not because they don't have the talent. And they've been perennial playoff contenders, and they've had a great history. But then they come back, and when their back's against the wall, they can pull it out. So there's all of these different pieces of the NWSL from 3 to 9, like you said, that if there's a tweak tactically here or there, it can really change everything. And so the coaching levels have really increased over the last few years, the player levels, but the league remains incredibly competitive, and it makes it fun. You're never going into decision day in the NWSL knowing exactly how things are going to work out. And that's fun for the fan.
Have you filled out your bracket yet?
No, I have not. But I technically could right now. I'm not covering any of the NWSL playoff games, so I need to take a look at that. But obviously, there's some great matchups between those teams.
And I know we'll kind of walk through them a little bit, but just the idea that I am seeing more folks shy away from Kansas City winning it all, and I'm seeing more folks loading into Washington winning it all. I know it's almost too easy to sit there and say that Kansas City is going to do damage and they're just going to lay waste to everybody and they're going to bring out the flamethrower and forget it. But I'm seeing a lot of folks drifting over to the Washington side of things to win it all in the postseason.
And I'm not surprised by that, honestly, because I think we all know that it can be so hard. One, to win the Shield, to win the championship is incredibly difficult. The other piece is when you've matched up twice in a season with the team, these coaches can adapt. Now, so can Vlatko, and he's shown that all year. So I don't think any of us will be surprised if Kansas City wins. That's kind of the easy choice is, okay, well, they were great. They had an amazing season that's never been done. They win the championship, expected. But if you're going to look at another team that could possibly do this, or if Kansas City trips up because of some of these tactical changes, or as we know in football, an off day of form, or there's some kind of field around the goal that just like the ball won't go in or something. We've seen weirder things happen. If they have one of those days, you're looking at someone like a Washington, based on the attacking personalities that they have with the Spirit. They have come into really good form as well. But then you look at Trinity Rodman, who's dealing with injury, different things like that. There's a lot of different things at play.
So if we just sit there and we look at the grid here as we go into the postseason, and obviously 1, 8, 2, 7, 3, 6, and 4, 5, everything lines up starting on Friday. Orlando and Seattle. I don't know how many times you got to see either the Pride or the Rain this year, but when you look at Orlando and Seattle, what stands out?
The first thing that I think about is Orlando is the reigning champion. So they are starting their season over right now. They got into the playoffs. They had a good season, but I think they want to prove something, and they get a chance to do that. With Seattle, Laura Harvey has been able to have a really stingy defensive structure all year. She's made it difficult for teams to score on them. And she continues to prove that. I don't see her changing anything about that being what they rely on with the counterattacking transition. But they just faced Orlando on decision day. That brings in a different element of, do they both attack the game the same way? Seb Hines tends to like to switch things up a little bit. Laura Harvey, not as much, because she has found a solution that works for Seattle. So I think we're going to see more of the same.
Seattle, I mean, it's Saturday. Yeah, I've got S's on the brain here. I haven't had my caffeine yet. Washington and Racing Louisville. This one's going to be on Paramount Plus, at least on the domestic side of things, and on CBS. Noon kick on Saturday. When you look at this, obviously, for Washington, we know what to expect. Racing Louisville into the postseason for the first time, and it's almost like you're playing with house money. It's like, yeah, we're diving in. Everything's cool. You know, we'll just see what we've got, and we'll go ahead and just lay it all out there. Having that kind of an attitude going into a game where you're a decided underdog, I mean, obviously that to me is a plus, even if you're going into an environment like you said with Washington, even though that some of your stars are dinged up.
Well, like we said, they've already faced Washington twice this year, so there's no surprises there. And you're right. Not only did they get into the playoffs on the last day, they jumped to 7th. They were hoping just to get in. They jumped to 7th. They avoid the Kansas City Current, but then you've got Washington waiting on you, which is not an easy task. Louisville is one of those teams, like you said, playing with house money. They can just go after it. They're not going to change their style of play under Bev Yanez. Super happy for that coaching staff. They barely missed it last year, tied to get into the playoffs, lost it on the third tiebreaker. I believe it was a goal differential last year. And so your heart kind of goes out to this team. So I think they're just going to say, this is who we are. Let's give it everything we got against this Washington Spirit team. Going into, obviously, into DC will be difficult, but they're just kind of my team that, besides Kansas City, that I always look at them and go, they just figure it out. They're well structured. Their players step up in big moments, and they have a big amount of buy-in for not having been a club that's gotten into the playoffs. So now they've seen their reward.
Now, you mentioned Gotham as being on a bit of a hot streak, and there's nothing like rolling 7s and 11s at the table and continuing, and everybody's sitting there looking at, you're on a roll. Okay, I'll go where you are. You know, I'll bet what you've got on the table. Gotham and Kansas City. I mean, everybody's going to look at this and go, okay, yeah, it's a 1-8, but I don't know how typical a 1-8 this is, considering it's Gotham and you're going up against Kansas City. This one, to me, everybody's sitting there looking at Washington. This might be that prime example as to why folks are looking at Washington, because you've got a hot Gotham team coming in against Kansas City in round 1.
This is not a 1-8 matchup, to your point. Not in the slightest. I think if Kansas City, after they took care of their early game on Sunday, is looking at the North Carolina Gotham game, the Racing Bay game, and I believe that if we're talking about Louisville or North Carolina playing Kansas City, it's a different conversation if they had been in the 8th spot. Gotham dropping there, I think, is the hardest thing for Kansas City Current. Do I think Kansas City can get past them? I do. Yeah. But this is a test. And you've got Rose Lavelle playing in some of the best form she's played in recently. You know, she's had injury issues and she's been out at times, coming back. She can change a game on her own. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to watch that matchup. And I don't necessarily think the Kansas City Current probably had it even in their mind that they thought they would play Gotham, but they know it's a possibility. But Gotham was up in 3rd and 4th at one point later in the season. So that shows you how tight these standings are and how quickly it can change.
Portland and San Diego is the back end of the doubleheader for ABC on Sunday. And this is big ABC. So it's noon and 3. Kansas City gets brunch, basically, and then Portland gets lunch. Portland and San Diego. San Diego finishes the season putting 6 on Chicago, and now they come into the postseason. Portland and San Diego, obviously, two West teams that like to trade haymakers at each other and just kind of sit there in the middle of the ring and take swings at each other. What are you looking at with Portland and San Diego?
For San Diego, if they can get a shutout, I think they win a playoff game. They have a lot of attacking personalities. So for me, it's if they can just stay in games, they eventually will have players like a Cascarino that's able to create off the side. And now Dudinha is starting to score goals. She scored to take the lead against Kansas City this past weekend. So I think that's easier said than done with Portland, but I think for San Diego, it's just that structural piece of and the consistency of doing it week in and week out. But they're a team that's loaded with talent. Their biggest issue is kind of figuring out the 9 position. They've had a couple different players rotate through there. Leon was in there at times. Corley would step up there, and she also plays in the 10. Ascanio, who's very young, talented, has gone between the 10 and the 9 at times. So there's just a lot of different attacking options, but that's been some of their biggest issues. I don't think that Portland can necessarily keep them from scoring. So it's a matter of, okay, how many goals is Portland going to score? So that one could be a bit of a shootout, I think, in Portland, but you never know.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm trying to find some breaking news collaboration here, and it's from Tom Bogert, and it has to do with North Carolina FC. Bogert is reporting as of a little after 9 o'clock. North Carolina FC informs players they will not be fielding a team in 2026. They have a playoff game on Saturday against Rhode Island FC. Sources expect, according to Bogert, the club will finish their playoff run. Players with contracts now end after 2 months. And so we'll keep an eye on that. And somewhat side, as a part of the organization, how does this affect Courage? Obviously, we'll keep an eye on that. But that breaking news out of North Carolina FC and Tom Bogert this morning. Let's get into the colleges real quick. We're getting into getting toward conference play and ACC and SEC and things like that. What are you staring at when it comes to ACC and SEC and college soccer heading into the weekend?
Well, I'm on the ACC semifinals. Very excited about that. You've got Virginia, Notre Dame, you've got Stanford, and you've got Duke. All 4 of them in this game or in this tournament. Excuse me. These are 4 of the top 7 teams in the country. So you can't really argue with the fact that they got it right, and the right teams are in this, and it's the right teams that are going, the teams that have gone through the ACC gauntlet and just really figured out how to do things. Virginia took Florida State 2 penalties, and it was a tight game. So it was really exciting. Duke gets the 1-0 win over Louisville to be able to come in, and Notre Dame and Stanford have just been hanging around a little bit and just waiting to see what they were going to do. So this will be really fun. I'm with Glenn Davis on these, and going to be very exciting.
Well, and when you get to hang out with another one of our OGs in Glenn Davis, it's always a good time.
Exactly.
And Glenn is one of those. Literally, Glenn is one of those flag bearers. Regardless, I finally got to see what there it is.
As I talk about the ACC with my Tar Heels not being
well,
there,
but you gotta flash it. You gotta flash the alma whenever you can. But no, I mean, Glenn is a great ambassador, regardless of level. It could be Major League Soccer, it could be college. You put Glenn in any situation, and it's a joy to hear him because of the passion that he has with the game itself, and it carries into each individual matchup. And he's a guy that you get to learn a lot from when you're just hanging out with him, even if the light's not on and you're not even calling a game. You get to learn a lot about Glenn, his passion, and the game when you get to hang out with him.
What a pleasure it's been to work with Glenn Davis. I remember listening to so many games that he called at the highest level. And like you said, across a ton of different levels. He's such a pleasure to work with, an amazing guy, amazing human being. And I started working with him about 2.5 years ago through the college game. And I just feel like the thing I can say about him, besides him being an amazing human, is he makes me better on the air. That's a sign of a pretty amazing broadcaster, when you have your partner at ease and you just enjoy calling the game. There's no worries. I know he's got the broadcast, and I can go where I need to go. And his background in the game, just everything. So I'm really excited to be with him for these.
All right. One more thing before you get to make sure that Owen goes outside, because I know that he probably just wants either chicken or a walk or both. MLS playoffs last night. We had Seattle in their game number 2 heading to a game number 3. They got out to an early start. Apparently, we can't have nice things because then Minnesota United decided to turn it into MLS After Dark. We've got games heading into match day 3s. What do you think about the folks heading into match day 3s and what you've seen so far?
Oh my goodness. I could not stay up for the game. I tried so hard. But I had the NWSL Decision day before. I flew back yesterday. I was trying so hard, and they scored those 2 goals. Minnesota did right before half in that 8 minutes of extra time. And I was like, you got to be kidding. So I gave it about 15 minutes and was falling asleep, not because of the game, because I was exhausted. We're at the end of the year. That was fun. Seattle, I do think, is going to have to keep scoring, though, if they want to take out Minnesota, because we know Minnesota's efficiency. Everyone's looking at Inter Miami, Nashville. I mean, come on. It's going back to Miami. We had the decision day result with all the goals. We've had and that ended up with Inter Miami's win. And you have the first game Inter Miami win, the second game Nashville win. That's the one that I'm really excited about. I'm hoping for a lot of goals because I just want to see a lot of goals, a lot of fun. The purists out there might say, let's see who can get the shutout and get the 1-0 win, but I don't think that's anything we're going to see with Nashville.
No.
And
all right. So you and the OG Glenn Davis are doing college this week and this weekend. What's your rundown for the rest of the week before we catch up with you again?
So Virginia Stanford will be one of the semifinal games, and then Duke Notre Dame. Duke did lose to Notre Dame earlier in the year, so that's a rematch there. And then that will be Thursday night on the ACC network, both of those games back to back. And then Sunday we'll have the championship at noon on ESPN.
And we will be catching up with you about that stuff when you come back and visit next week, because then we'll be heading into postseason and we'll be talking colleges. As always, KCD, great to catch up with you. And I'm fairly certain that someone knows it's the end of a segment. And he's like, all right, good. Let's get into the kitchen because it's all about me. It is all about me. As always, Kacey, great to see you, my friend. And enjoy your calls with the OG Glenn Davis. We'll catch up with you soon.
Awesome.
There we go. KCD. Where's she be? She be heading to the ACC. Was a poet, didn't know it. There we go. So Kacey White, follow her on all of the social medias. Kacey, it's KCD White on the 280 character app. And she's also on Instagram, and she does a lot of behind the scenes stuff when it comes to all of her stories and everything, and where she is and what she's doing, and she gives you kind of like breaks the fourth wall a little bit when it comes to everything that she's doing behind the scenes. And it's it's been cool to have her on Tuesdays to kind of give a bit of a look to things that we haven't had the chance to in the past, like deep dives into the ACC and the SEC, into the college game, into women's soccer and the NWSL. To have those deep dives, it's been really cool to catch up with KCD and find out what's on her mind on a daily basis. Okay, we're going to keep an eye on the story in North Carolina. Once again, I just kind of talked about it briefly. And it is Tom Bogert at The Athletic. Once again, as of updated at 9:30, so updated 8 minutes ago. North Carolina FC has informed players it will not be fielding a team in 2026. Sources briefed on the situation tell The Athletic. North Carolina finished third in the Eastern Conference. They host Rhode Island on Saturday. Sources are firmly expecting the club to finish the playoff run. Once again, Bogert, all players under contract will be released and can sign elsewhere. Any player with a guaranteed contract through next season will now end after 25 and get about 2 months' salary. Obviously, North Carolina FC has been contacted for comment. USL declined to comment when approached. They've been owned by Steve Malik, who owns both North Carolina FC and the Courage since 2015. And it was all the way back in 2007. Remember, they were the Carolina Railhawks, rebranded as North Carolina FC back 8 years ago. And you now have what happened with North Carolina FC. And Tom mentions Memphis 901, Rio Grande Valley, San Diego Loyal, Austin Bold, and Reno 1868 as casualties in USL Championship over the last handful of years. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on what's going on with North Carolina FC, see if there is any collateral effect when it comes to North Carolina Courage, and see what happens there. So obviously that we'll keep an eye on all of that as we go. And yes, freaking Flow P6C, you've been reported and blocked. It's amazing what happens when people sit there and they come up with these really odd handles, on Twitch and stuff. And you're like, yeah, no, yeah, solicitors, stream boo and whatever. This is where we take out our Dikembe Mutombo finger and go, no, 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 not happening. All right. Time to go to Chicago, and we get to catch up with our friend Max Anderson, find out what's on Max's mind in the Eastern Conference, Chicago Fire, Greg Berhalter, Choice D, all the above. Max, what up?
Not much. I'm trying to find out what's your burner account name. If, in theory, John, you had a burner account, I'd love to know what's John Nelson's burner account title.
Okay, so let's see. Let's think about this. Oh, probably something. Jimbo Fisher is, let's see.
Unemployed?
Yeah, well, I have $90M and you don't.
Okay, fair enough.
Something like that, just to continue. Well, actually, but and if it was me impersonating him, it would be FSU quitter. Year.
Tell us how you really feel.
Well, as an alum of the institution, it is a so it will have been 2 coaches and about $147 million, something like that. I mean, I forget what Jimbo's buyout was, but yeah, you're probably looking at about $120 million in buyouts over the last 2 college football coaches. Yay!
Well, as an Indiana University alum, I'm having a little more fun than you right now, John.
Oh, but I mean, look, Cignetti, he is crushing it. It is great to see what's going on. And I mean, for me to see what has been going on there, where the last time it was successful, you got to play 13, and it was really cool to see that level of Indiana football. But now you're seeing what Cignetti can bring to the table. I'm enjoying new folks in the B1G sitting there and telling Michigan to take a seat. I'm enjoying that kind of stuff.
I think everybody is. I grew up a Northwestern fan. I grew up in Evanston, and my dad went to Kellogg. So I grew up a big Northwestern fan, went to Indiana for school. Never, honestly, full disclosure, never got really behind the sports teams there. It was just a rough time. The program was ran by Kevin Wilson. It wasn't fun. He was a maniac. So never really ingratiated myself. So definitely hand up. Been on the bandwagon, but having fun. A lot of my friends still are having a lot of fun, so I'm having fun with them.
All right, so then before we actually get to talking about soccer, I would have maintained that if Northwestern stayed at Martin, if they had stayed on the lakefront, that lakefront creation that they put in the lab and put there, I would maintain that they would be sold out every week. It would be a destination in the B1G. It would be a fun look. And seriously, I mean, it's one of the great vistas that you've created at Northwestern right there on the waterfront. And you decide, we're going to drop 800 large on a freaking spaceship or whatever.
What do you mean? It's a soccer-style stadium. I thought that'd be news to your audience and happy news. No, it's funny because I'm still a season ticket holder for Northwestern. My dad's been for 30 years. I took him over about 8 years ago. It's an affliction. It was fun there for a while. It's been not as fun here lately.
Yeah.
Do you want the fan answer to that or the analyst answer to that?
Choice D, all the above, sir.
All right. I'll start with the analyst answer and say the city of Evanston would never let that happen. And it was a Herculean effort, even to let them do what they did on the lakefront.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So cool. 2 years. Loved it. And I think everybody that walked in that stadium said, man, wouldn't it be cool if they just built it here? But unfortunately, that was never going to happen. The city of Evanston was never going to allow that to happen. It was, again, anything that's built on the lakefront takes a Herculean effort in the city of Evanston, and frankly, rightfully so. Northwestern doesn't pay any property taxes. It's like I could go all day on Northwestern and 160-year-old state laws that exempt them from property taxes, and that have been challenged in courts 10 times, and Evanston always loses. So. Not exactly the friendliest relationship between the city and the university. That's why they had to pay him $120 million over 10 years to let him build what they built on Central Street. So,
fantastic. Okay, we did actually bring you in to talk about soccer. Look, the show goes off the rails, and it's perfectly fine.
We have fun.
It doesn't matter. All right, so when you look at the 2025 season for Chicago Fire under Greg Berhalter, now that you've had like a day to sit there and look at the entire body of work, what sticks with you from this season, being the voice of the Chicago Fire? What has stuck with you about this year?
Significant progress. I think this is my third year on the broadcast crew. I wasn't on the game Saturday. The other half of the broadcast team, Max Toma, was. But progress.
Yeah.
And when I think back to how I started with the Fire, Ezra Henriksen was the head coach, which feels like a lifetime ago. Then Frank Klopas took over an interim, was okay. They brought him back on another year, wasn't okay. And they bring in this Greg Berhalter, who, frankly, as a medium follower of U.S. men's national team, didn't have the best reputation in my eyes. Had really gotten dragged through the mud there at the end of his time with the U.S. men's national team. I am probably the biggest Greg Berhalter fan there is in existence at this point. Okay. What he did this year was incredible. Some really shrewd signings for sure, but the confidence and, most importantly, the plan that he put in place and the infrastructure that he put in place. Obviously, everyone's seen the news about the stadium, which, John, I'm sure you're going to schedule a road trip there.
Yeah.
When time comes in 2028.
Mm-hmm.
It's really impressive what's happened, especially in the last year and a half.
Yeah.
And progress. I mean, one step. I was saying to somebody else yesterday, it's a staircase to get to where Philadelphia's gotten, to where Atlanta has been at times. And they took a step this year. There's going to be a landing that they hit. They're going to plateau, but then they're just going to keep climbing the staircase. And I think they will. I mean, that's team. You look at that game 1 against Philadelphia, just never quit. And that's the new attitude that Greg Berhalter's brought is, doesn't matter, 84th minute, what were the odds? Probably plus 2,000 to even get a draw at that point.
Yeah.
And they did. And the belief and the confidence that Greg Berhalter's installed, really impressive to watch. And frankly, I love his interactions with the media. He's honest. He's candid. You ask a question, he'll give you an answer. And it's just been a really fun year, regardless of how it ended. 15
different goal scorers this year for Chicago. Obviously, 32 of them went to Kuipers and Zinkernagel, which I think don't they have like 1,009 on the lakefront for their business offices for the legal firm from 9 to 4 Monday through Thursday.
Exactly.
You get the 32 goals from Kuipers and Zinkernagel, but then you have Gutierrez pitching in almost close to double digits, and then you have folks like Jonathan Bamba, Andrew Gutman, Tom Barlow. So there is that to your thought on the collective, it is improvement, and you're having a bunch of different folks contributing offensively. I know that there's probably going to be some defensive things that will be addressed in the offseason starting, say, December 11th, when you got to have your lists in and everything. But offense, I don't think, is a concern because Chicago is investing in it once again, and it's smart investment because a guy like Zinkernagel, he was sought around the world, and he goes to Chicago. So there are some pieces here. Offense is in play, and there's improvement there. I think now it's the defense you've got to be staring at,
Yeah, gave up 65 goals in the regular season. Philadelphia gave up 35, right? That's a big delta. And yeah, that's the way that Greg Berhalter approached the problem. Was he had the opportunity, get some offensive pieces. Zinkernagel, no one could have expected him to be a 15-15 guy. He was just incredible. And I mean, what a warrior to play in that game too, without really even being listed as in the injury report, because he was clearly in discomfort, still played all 90 and played all 90 hard. And so I know he further ingratiated himself with the fan base the way he came out. They clearly started with the front, right, with the attack. And you're right. What comes next is kind of that central mid going back to the defense, and already news. I mean, man, does the guy ever sleep? Monday morning, and rumors about this Anton Saletros, who, 19 caps with the Swedish national team, AIK Academy grad, it's played in Russia, played in Norway, it's played in France, like a very experienced guy that apparently is coming over per public reports. Haven't heard anything official from the Fire on it, but I've seen AIK talk about it. So sure seems like that's going to happen. I mean, 48 hours after what was a really dispirited end, already working on the next round of additions and how to make this team better. So again, it's another step. And I think this team going into next year should be a sure, favorite lock to make the playoffs. And, with a couple of more shrewd moves on the defensive end, I think could do even more than that.
With this roster, and of course this means I'm probably going to have to go up and dig the September GAM numbers out, but Is there someone in your mind that kind of flew below the radar outside of the big names? Who are some of those second level dudes that kind of flew below the radar that impressed you this season that you're looking forward to seeing that next step in 26?
Sergio Orgel's still 21 years old. And I think that's the one that a lot of people thought they might see a little bit more scoring from. Now, that's not what he was asked to do. If you look at his stat sheet, I'm sure your viewers are probably looking up Sergio Orgel. I don't remember hearing that name very much. Stats don't necessarily stick out in terms of goal contributions, but what he was able to do box to box really was one of the reasons they were able to go. Now, Andre Franco was the other reason, right? And the status for him, unclear. And when he's going to be back, is this a 6-month ACL? Is this an 8-month ACL, but he's not going to be right for 12 months? We don't know, and we won't know for a while. So that clarity, I think, in the next month or two, or based on how signings go, is going to tell you a lot about how they feel about Franco's ability to come back in 2026. It's going to be actions, not words, because every ACL is a little bit different. Some have gotten to the point where they're fine in 6 months. Other guys take an entire year to really get right. There's just no way to tell. So Franco, Sergio Orgel, I'd say those two in terms of guys that came in, and for Orgel was never necessarily being expected to play 30-some games this season, starting the majority of them. I think they expected him to be more of a super sub role than the starter that he had become, but was forced into action. So those two guys, I think, on the roster currently, I'm very intrigued to see what happens next. And Franco's contract situation also complicates things. He's not technically under contract. All indications are they want to keep him around, and he doesn't want to go back. But they're going to have to figure that out with his home club, because I don't think the Fire want to stash him for a year on a contract that they don't realistically wouldn't see him till earliest of June-ish, but more realistically probably not till after the World Cup break.
2 and 4 is the model for those that may not know. It is the 2 DPs, and you had 5 U22s, but Koutsias was out on loan. So you're 2 and 4. Looking at the numbers for contract and contract decisions, Jack Elliott through this year, option for 26. Kouame on loan, contract through this year, and then it's 26, 7, and 8. Then it is Mueller, who is unavailable, but once again, to SEI. So a contract through 25, option for 26. Same for Barlow. Andre Franco, you mentioned. Chase Gasper out of contract. Omar Gonzalez, who I think just had another birthday. He's like 708. Omar has a contract through this year with an option for 26. There are a lot of, and 25, Jeffrey Gals, a supplemental, who's out of contract. David Paraba, 25 options for 6, 7, and 8. Same for Sam Williams. Brian Dowd on the supplemental, who's out on loan, is through 25 options for 26 and 27. So there aren't a whole lot of major money decisions when it comes to the dudes who are out of contract that you might have to think about picking up options and such. So the big name folks and the folks that you're anticipating hanging around for a while, they're not the decisions that you've got to make. You can add to that, as you mentioned with the talk with AIK and the Allsvenskan, but it's pieces that you've got to worry about picking up options.
Yeah, it's a good flexibility position to be in. And I think there's a couple of those names that will be back, and there's several that I think won't, as there was a significant turnover on the roster from Greg Berhalter's arrival back at the beginning of last year, or end of last year, I should say. And I expect to see a good amount of turnover once again as he continues to make this roster the way he wants it to. I think everybody always knew it was going to be a minimum of a 2-year process just for him to get the roster in the place that he wants it. Again, if you had told Fire fans on February 1st, hey, you're going to be playing in the playoffs, you're going to have a home playoff game. Yeah, it's technically 2 home playoff games. How's that sound? They would have taken it in a heartbeat, right? So from an expectation standpoint, I think the hope was to make the playoffs. The expectations was to be more competitive. I don't think a 23-point improvement was in anybody's bingo card in a playoff appearance. So I know Fire fans are excited, despite how things ended, just the tempo I get. Specific roster decisions, that's not my forte, unfortunately, John. I am not one of those. Not one of those MLS capsicos. I know a couple. I can certainly refer you a couple. But in terms of how that puzzle fits together, beyond my area of expertise.
I'm just sitting here staring at it going, okay, contract out. It's like, okay, fine. That's what it is.
I could see. I mean, Jack Elliott was so good. Again, I don't know how that projects
Don't
out.
leave him unmarked at 22 yards away.
Yeah, that was. I mean, one of my favorite calls of my broadcast career. It sounded a little screamy, I think, but how could you not be in that moment as a home radio broadcaster?
Yeah,
so that was really fun. If that's the highlight of the year for me, that was a heck of a highlight.
No doubt. When you look at the rest of the playoffs right now, we got match day 3s coming up here on the weekend. I don't know if you stayed up almost late to see what happened with Seattle and Minnesota last night, but when you see the match day 3s coming up, what sticks in your head about these matchups on the weekend? Oh, you muted. I don't know. You muted. There's something going on. I don't know. It's like somebody just – there it is. There you go.
Somehow I accidentally hit the mute. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Did not catch the Minnesota-Seattle game live. Did catch the highlights this morning. What a chaos that was.
Oh, boy.
So game 3, I believe that's going to be next weekend.
Yeah, everything's coming up this weekend, so we can sit there and take the international break off and then go in 2 weeks and pick it back up.
That's right.
Just when we get momentum coming out of the opening round game day 3s, we got an international one.
Exactly. So that always throws me off a little bit when there's that break. It feels so unnatural.
Sure.
Really cool to see a bunch of 1-1 series, right? I mean, Miami, Nashville, that's going to be a war. Looking forward to that one this weekend. Charlotte, NYC after that penalty kick shootout, which was dramatic, to force a game 3. Cincinnati, Columbus, a game 3. San Diego, Portland. Who had that on their bingo card that Portland might push San Diego to a game?
Who had missing 3 PKs in a row on the bingo card, man?
Yeah, and it just goes to show you. I mean, that was I think the most frustrating part about the game 1 is, in a game where the Fire were certainly underdogs, if you can get the game to a PK, essentially a coin flip. I mean, there's a little bit of skill, but it's a lot of coin flip for sure. And, for the Fire not to have been able to execute that penalty kick shootout, who knows how game 2 goes if that goes better. So for Portland, that's certainly exciting for the league to see an 8th seed again challenging to advance, which I know has become a bit of a fun annual tradition for an 8th seed to find a way. So I'd say my number 1, Miami, Nashville, just for the drama of it. And I think to watch the league squirm a little bit if somehow Miami gets knocked out. I think from a fan perspective, there's a lot of a feeling of that. I don't necessarily feel that way. I love watching Miami play. I mean, I got to see Lionel Messi play live at Soldier Field. I actually got to see him when I was in college, when I was living abroad and studying in Barcelona, and became a big FC Barcelona fan at Camp Nou. So big fan of his, for more than a decade now. And I was there when they won the treble. So became a big Barcelona fan in college. So all that's to say, to watch these guys now on the MLS side, be able to broadcast these guys, thinking back to my college self now is pretty cool.
Yep. And so I guess we're not supposed to mention finances, Joan Laporta, and construction permits at the Camp Nou, right? We're not supposed to go there?
This is a free country, fortunately, so we can. There's always something going on. Catalonia is an interesting place. If you've ever been to Barcelona, if you've ever been to Spain, specifically that region, there's an independence movement in Catalonia for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
It is a different place. If you've been to Madrid but haven't been to Barcelona, it's like being in 2 different countries. What's
next for you? What's going on in your universe now?
So soccer broadcasting world's over. I'm still do a lot of work with the UIC in the Missouri Valley Conference. So I actually have a game Wednesday night for the UIC men's soccer.
There you go.
They started off with a flurry. They've hit a little bit of a rough patch where they might not even have a home MVC playoff game, which looked like they were going to. So that's a bummer. That would have been this weekend. I don't think that's going to happen. If they win Wednesday, I think they need some things to happen. I'm still working on my prep there. I do a lot of high school hockey in the area. Just on it. That's kind of how I started. And then I do all the hockey state championships here in the state of Illinois at the United Center. This year, it's going to be at a different venue, which I can't say publicly yet, but I think fans will be happy about. Mm-hmm. And still searching. So if you know anybody with play-by-play roles in the Chicago area and frankly outside of it, I'm willing to travel. So I love what I do, and it's my side passion. As you can tell, I'm traveling for work here. I'm in a hotel room in Omaha, Nebraska, but just keeping it alive with the broadcasting work. So hey, out there, if you need a play-by-play broadcaster in basketball or football or baseball or soccer or hockey, I do it all.
Well, and is this change of venue for the state championships? Could it be something that's on the horizon? Maybe.
Yes, it's going. 2026 will not be at the United Center, and it's going to be at another very large venue in the Chicago area, right off the highway, just west of Chicago. I think enough people, if they know the area, know where I'm talking about, but it hasn't technically been
yeah, the IHF something close.
But no, it's exciting stuff. I love the work that I do, and certainly don't do it for the money. Do it because I absolutely love what I do.
Right, as always. You know where the garage door opener is and where the key is under the mat. You know that we'll be knocking down your door when it comes to the off season and everything else going on. Do not be a stranger, my friend. Great to see you, and safe travels as you're there in Omaha.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. And feel free. Things break through the off season. Happy to come on and talk about it.
Will do. All right, there goes Max Anderson. Be safe, my friend. We'll see you soon. It is the top of the hour, and we go into hour number 2. Now, this one's going to be a fun conversation. And I get to ask of why something gets built the way that it is and what you get to see going forward. So we now go, and I guess I should say I'll ask where it is. I would think it might be Alabama. I don't know where Ben is, but we'll go ahead and bring Ben in and find out what's going on. So where, sir, are you? Are you in the home offices there at Trivela, or where are you?
Hey, John. Yep. In Birmingham, Alabama at our home office here.
Okay. So this is Ben Boycott, and he is Grand Exalted Poobah. That is his official, that's on the business card, right? It is officially Grand Exalted Poobah, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
And he is founding director and CEO of the Trivela Group. And we have been following some of the franchises in Trivela that are, a part of the portfolio. And it's been fun for us to find out what's going on at Drogheda, to find out what's going on at Walsall, and to see the portfolio at Trivela when it comes to multi-club ownership work its way into the African continent and also into Europe as well. How does someone and a group of someones that are based in Birmingham get interested in soccer in the first place?
Yeah, great question. Definitely a bit of a circuitous route that got us involved in this in the first place. And if I'm absolutely honest, not something that if I could rewind 10 years ago that we set out to do necessarily. So my background is in finance and investments prior to anything to do with sports. The initial connection to soccer, football, came through some nonprofit work that I was involved with as a volunteer, and then actually as a full-time team member of an awesome nonprofit that's based here in Birmingham, Alabama, called Vapor Ministries, that uses soccer training centers in the developing world as a platform for humanitarian work. So got involved in that, and really soccer was just a means to an end for stuff to try to do good stuff in the world, right? To help communities in East Africa and West Africa and impoverished Caribbean nations. Man, like, as you can imagine, we're running, really high quality soccer training facilities with, nutrition and equipment and education and coaching and all the rest of it. And naturally, some of the athletes, after they've been in that environment for 10 years, have a high degree of potential, which is great. Initially I was just saying, okay, awesome. I hope you guys can go, make a career out of football and make a lot of money one day. That'd be awesome. Right. But it was a bit naive at the time, didn't understand, how frankly awful and exploitative certain corners of our industry can be, particularly in those more opaque environments like East Africa, West Africa. So we had just some horror stories and people who are familiar with the industry have heard stories like these, but horror stories of kids being taken advantage of from those impoverished environments. And so, the earliest vestiges of what would become Trivela were really just professional clubs at a very, very low level in these developing world environments, which is genuinely just a platform for protecting players from kind of the bad actors in the industry, that we could develop players and try to create a safe pathway for them. And that was just a very first step that ultimately turned into, myself and my founding partner, Ken, starting to believe that there was some unique opportunities upstream as those players progressed, and then just starting to look at European football specifically, and some really good ways of investing in it and some really bad ways of investing in it, and feeling like there was an opportunity, if we were willing to take a very long-term view, that there was some good investments out there, and started in 2021 and made our first investment in 2022, and it's sped up a bit since then.
How patient do you have to be in the current soccer environment when it comes to finding the right club, finding the right club for the right reason, and knowing that it's going to be a long-term investment? It's not something that you're going to, as much as we all like the instant gratification of whether it's winning or getting the player that you can develop and then sell on and then move forward with that profit and continue to build from within and such. How difficult is it to be patient when it comes to building an MCO, finding the right places, finding the right players, all of these different pieces to make sure that you're going at it the right way and staying true to who you are?
Yeah, I think you have to be. I think that's the hardest part about it, honestly. I think you have to be exceptionally patient in an environment that doesn't lend itself to that, right? Because the games never stop coming. I mean, literally anymore. We have a team in Ireland that runs a February through November season, and then obviously in England and Denmark that run, kind of that August through May sort of time frame. And so apart from international breaks, there's never a weekend where we're not playing, and you lose 3 games in a row and it starts to feel like the apocalypse in whatever environment you're in. So it is definitely an instant gratification industry, but I think the way to be successful in the industry is to think long-term and be very patient. I mean, there's a few different things, right? Like just you said it well, to find the right clubs in the first instance that we feel are good investments and are going to be good opportunities for us. Every deal we've worked on so far, we've been talking to those counterparties for a year before anything was public, right? And so in every case so far, it's been a very long process to determine whether the club was the right partner for us. Most of them aren't. All the ones we've done so far, I'm really happy with, but we filter, as you can imagine, we filter through 100 for every one that we have moved forward with. And then once you're in it, I think you have to be super patient to not try to make a quick buck, because I think you can get in loads of trouble investing in football if you're trying to be a quick buck artist. I think when it comes to just trying to buy promotion or buy Europe or flip a roster quickly, it can lead to some really bad outcomes. And so I think being level-headed and patient is really the only way to make it work, unless it's just purely an ego play, which is not for us.
Well, and I know that when you spent your time in Tuscaloosa, you got your degree in risk management. So, it's like, okay, you got the book element of it, and you got the lecture part of it, and then you get to experience it in real time of, okay, how do we continue to grow this, have the right messaging, and make sure that folks know who we are, that we're serious about it. When you're knocking on a door, is it, I guess early on when you were knocking on doors, sitting there saying, yeah, we're interested, did people sit there and go, what is this American, what does this American know? What do I want to do business with an American for? Or was it, fairly open door? It's like, okay, this is somebody new. He gets it. I'll listen. What was the initial response when you wanted to start opening these doors?
Yeah, I'd say early on it was there was certainly skepticism. I think we had a good amount of credibility just from what my background was and what my founding partner's background was. So founded the organization with Ken Polk. He and I in the early days were 50-50 partners, and he's the CEO of a large family office firm here in Birmingham. And so there was enough credibility in who we were that we could have conversations. But absolutely, I mean, first conversations were with Walsall. That was the first deal we did, and that was not too far on the back end of the whole Super League thing, a lot of which was driven by American owners. So, there's maybe generally not the highest view of American ownership in various European countries. And I'd say at that moment it was heightened in England specifically. Yeah. And so there's certainly skepticism early on. And I guess I'll just credit Steph Gamble, who was CEO of Walsall at the time, and Lee Pomlett, who was the chairman of Walsall at the time and still is the co-chairman, of being open-minded enough to have those conversations about 135 at the time year-old football club, and them being responsible to steward that and what it means for that community, and being willing to have the conversation with completely untested Americans at the time. So I think there was a good amount of open-mindedness from them. And then obviously after we gotten involved with Walsall, that gave us a certain amount of credibility to have subsequent conversations after that. But yeah, a big credit to Lee and Stefan for being open-minded in the early days before we'd ever done this before.
Ben Boycott, founding director and CEO, Trivela Group out in Birmingham, building the multi-club ownership model from a bunch of different places, continuing to add pieces going forward. How much of your time in Chattanooga FC, being on the board, helped you in understanding the lay of the land, how to talk, who to talk to, the approach, how things are different, but how they're the same? How did the time at CFC, and how has it helped you try to figure out the foundation of what you want to do and build from there?
Yeah, I've actually come into the board at CFC a bit more recently. So I'd actually say it's the other way around, where I've learned a bit about kind of the different European models from being involved with Walsall, Drata, and Silkeborg, and then hopefully being able to add some measure of value from that experience to the CFC board, which is an awesome organization, and I'm really honored to be a part of it in that function.
Okay, so then I'll bite. How did what you were doing there help out CFC, understanding, because we know that CFC is in a great soccer market. We know that Fort Finley can generate a lot of heat when it comes to fans, and it's a difficult place to play and all these kinds of things. So how did everything that you're doing at Trivela help out with CFC?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that some of the stuff I've been able to comment on in terms of, the technical setup, the integration between the different levels of the organization, from the men's, the first side, the women's side, the academy programs. I think there's been some healthy conversations in terms of how, our European clubs are set up from a technical standpoint that hopefully have been instructive there. And then, also, it's been really interesting to compare notes. I mean, the primary owner of CFC is a close friend of mine, and he's one of our partners at Trivela Group as well. So there's a lot of integration between, just shared learnings between their GM and myself in terms of how they're thinking about their stadium situation, how they're thinking about, sponsorships and all that. And so I'd say it's hopefully mutually beneficial. We're comparing notes on, front of shirt values and ticket pricing and concession situations and all that kind of stuff. So I'd say it's hopefully, they would say the same, but hopefully mutually beneficial for everybody.
When Trivela came online, how many years ago are we talking?
We founded in 2021 in April, I guess. And then nobody had any clue what Trivela was, I suppose, until June of 2022, when we announced that we acquired 51% of Walsall FC. So whatever that is, three-ish years ago, 3.5 years ago. Yeah.
So how far back does your soccer fandom appreciation go?
Oh, yeah, I'll be honest with you. I grew up, I don't know if I should say all this. I grew up mostly in the northern parts. I was born in Canada.
Okay.
I grew up in Alaska, went to Minnesota for a college ice hockey career that didn't really work out, but would have been great if it did. So man, I was an ice hockey guy through and through, right up until I got involved with that nonprofit. And so that was kind of my first exposure to soccer. A lot of the folks there were Premier League fans, so I started paying attention to the Premier League as a result of that. So yeah, frankly, not that far. Again, this is maybe one of the bits I shouldn't say, but it's not like I grew up a diehard football fan. We're a Canada ice hockey family through and through. That's just kind of come about later in life.
Hey, I mean, look, I'm one of those guys that would watch Hockey Night in Canada when it was available to me on the NHL Network.
Don Cherry, right? And all those crazy coats and everything.
Yeah. I mean, look, Ron McLean, Don, look, you got Grapes, you got Ron McLean, you got folks there. I'm a Hockey Night in Canada guy. Trust me, I'm a hockey guy too. And what I started doing when I dove back in fully about a decade ago, it was when Manchester City and Manchester United were going back and forth on decision day that year in the Premier League. When you had to do math and it's like, okay, somebody's leading, somebody's not. Manchester City had it. Now they're behind a QPR and all this kind of madness. And the boss was wondering what I was getting wrapped into on Saturday mornings before college football would kick in.
Yeah.
And so what I started doing was explaining the matches that I was watching in the parlance of SEC football.
Okay.
And so what I would say was, okay, so the game I'm watching, for whatever reason, it would be like, okay, so Alabama is playing Vanderbilt, and this is a decade ago. So Alabama's playing Vanderbilt. They're in Tuscaloosa, and Vandy is winning. And so she would have an instant understanding of, oh, okay, so I know the game, I know the context of the game that you're watching. And so using that got her into soccer. And so now she's, following, me and what we're doing here at SDH and going to games, and she goes to watch Atlanta United and all this kind of stuff. And so that was why I was wondering, as far back as you have dived into soccer with Trivela, what has it been like for you to see the game grow to where it is on all levels here in the continental United States, and getting to take that knowledge with you to help grow Trivela overseas?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's interesting. It's funny you mentioned the SEC though too, just as a quick side note, because I think what I said before is actually helpful, because I don't have a boyhood club, if you will, right? Like I am like my clubs that I support are Walsall, Drata, and Silkeborg, and I don't have a side Premier League team or something like this. Now I was at the University of Alabama, as you mentioned before, for graduate school in 2011 and 2012. And if I remember, I won the national championship both years. So it was a really easy on-ramp to being a Alabama fan, right?
Yeah, the boss, she heard you discussing things, and when you mentioned that particular school, it just kind of went fuzzy. But yes, continue.
Well, the crazy thing is, like, up until we started doing this, I would get nervous on Saturdays. Like I would have to sit down, completely pay attention to the Alabama game, and watch every second of it, listen to every bit of commentary, even if we're up, at the time 50-0. I'm gonna watch every play and see how the third strings are going. Yeah. And the crazy thing is, I still watch it, but I think you only have maybe so much emotional energy for sports, and I just I'm still an Alabama fan, but it's just the process of being involved with.
Well, yeah, you got things that you're doing, man. I mean, you got other stuff that you're doing.
It's taken Alabama football for me, which is interesting, because it's not that I don't care, but it's just totally different than it used to be, because all my emotional energy about sports goes into these.
Well, and to my next question, considering, and I might be bringing up something kind of sore, but let me know if I am. For those that may not know Walsall's story, last year heading into this year, you get all the way to the end. You get all the way to the promotion playoff, and it's a heartbreaker.
That's right.
You're that close to getting into League One in the EFL pyramid. Can you break down what that kind of energy and emotion is on that day at Wembley to get so close and then not be able to finish?
Yeah, I need to go back and watch my
I'm sorry if I'm bringing flashbacks back, but it's just it's something.
Yeah.
It is something that Americans through their fandom may only see in a couple of different things, but since you're up close to it, as a vested interest, to be right there and your arms are around everybody and you're part of this growth and you're right there, and then that moment happens, and then you learn from it. And there was an interview that Matt did with Sky, discussing what happened last year and the start that Walsall is on this year, where you're top of the table on goal difference. I mean, there are two ways to take what happened last year, and you've taken the positive road through it, and you're storming through League Two right now at the top of the table.
Yeah, they've had a great start, and you're right. Wembley was that was a really difficult, painful day. I'm not going to joke around about it. It was really rough, and it was rough for the fans, and it was rough for all of us. And in fact, the story goes back a bit further, and I'm sure you know this, but Wembley was honestly just the last bit of it, because Walsall was actually 15 points clear at the top of the table in January, February, I think, and then just spring did not go well. We lost a key player in January, and did what we could to try to replace the goal production. And for one reason or another, I think it was just kind of a couple things snowballed into a crisis of confidence, and without unpacking the whole thing, kind of slipped down and down and down out of the automatic places. And probably the toughest day in all that, I don't know if you know this, John, but on the last day of the regular season, if we won at Crewe and Bradford failed to win at home, then we get promoted automatically. And I was there with about 15 people at Crewe. And we were up 1-0 at the end of the game, and Bradford was 0-0. By all accounts, getting promoted. Our whole supporter section was getting pretty riled up. They're announcing over the loudspeakers, please stay off the pitch at full time. Like it was one of them. Final whistle blows in our game, win the game. And at the exact same minute, final whistle blows for us, Bradford scores on the last kick of the game. And the goal was crazy, deflected, nonsense goal from nothing. And literally in the 97th minute of their game, they win 1-0 to put us in fourth, basically.
Yeah.
And so then we get through the semifinals in fine form, honestly. Did really well against Chesterfield, and then got to Wembley. And yeah, there wasn't a whole lot in that game against Wimbledon, and lost in front of however many thousand at Wembley. So
Yeah.
I'm rambling because it is painful, but in answer to your question, I honestly don't think that there's a corollary in American sports. I'm probably totally biased, but like, could I explain those emotions that entire town and team and staff felt? It was absolutely heart-wrenching. Yeah, it's really tough. It was really tough. So.
In every, and this is what I ask this of new owners and new front office personnel and things like that. I always ask this question: when it comes to the particular club that I'm attached to in any given interview, I always ask, there's got to be in that office there at Trivela in Birmingham a to-do list for the growth of the company, the growth of each individual franchise, what you've got to do with players and the next stages and all this kind of stuff. Where is that to-do list in the office? Is it on a Google Doc? Is it on a spreadsheet? Is it in a folder? Is it in something that, it's on legal pads and wire-bound notebooks spread across the office in certain files? Is it on one of those big 6-foot by 4-foot dry erase boards that's got a bunch of lines around it and everything? That's like, okay, this goes to here and this goes to here and this with this. Where is that to-do list for these franchises, and what do you think the next thing that you can cross off the list on the to-do list for Trivela is for the growth of these franchises and maybe adding more down the line?
Yeah. So where it's a shared Google Doc amongst our exec team that our COO runs. And I mean, there's a million and one things on there, but I guess the crux of all of them is really just to, we grew quite fast over the course of 2024. We hadn't really been running our club in Togo at a high level, and we really ramped it up. Drogheda came in 2024 and early. Silkeborg came in 2024 late. And so we, that year was a very rapid expansion year for us in the midst of all kinds of other stuff going on in terms of Drogheda winning the cup and Walsall being in the situation it was in and all the rest of it. So, really for 2025, the whole name of the game has been and continues to be just optimizing that and getting our arms wrapped around it as best we can, right? Just trying to make sure the technical setups are as clean and tight and comprehensive they can be for really the dual goals of first team success and academy production, and then just overall just commercial success of the clubs. And so there's a load of focus on the commercial side, sponsorships and corporate partnerships and that kind of stuff. And then also, huge focus on match day experience and optimizing as best we can. So that really is the name of the game for us right now. It's kind of a boring answer, but that really is the name of the game for us right now, since we grew so fast, trying to get our arms wrapped around it as best we possibly can and optimize it as best we can.
Yeah, well, because I mean, you obviously you want to grow, and you understand that sometimes you are grabbing that comet by the tail and you're trying to hang on, and you're trying to sit there and go, okay, how do we hang on as best we can and push everything forward equally, instead of sitting there going, okay, well, this works and then this works and then this works, and the whole idea might get kind of lost in the sauce if something advances faster than something else when it comes to what you want to do on the group, especially with the off the field component when it comes to folks understanding the things that you noticed about the game that you want to fix, the pathways and needs and welfare and all those kinds of things. It's not something that I think a lot of ownership groups focus on. They want to focus on all of the on the field stuff and presentation, but you don't see a lot of folks focusing on the off the field stuff with player welfare and making sure that they're taken care of as well. I mean, that's got to be a delicate balance, and adding a lot to the depth of field that you're trying to do there to develop.
It is a delicate balance, but I think it becomes less of a balance the longer term you think, if that makes sense. So if I'm basically thinking about what happens this season, then it's a real balance of saying, okay, how do I, do everything I can to maximize the points that we're getting, which is absolutely essential. Like, I'm not like, we want our teams to be successful. We want to win. I love winning. I hate losing. Nothing bothers me more than losing, right? But the flip side of it is, if you think of it over the course of, a 10 to 20 to 30 year time horizon, then building a real capability around the commercial side and the ticketing side and the match day experience side and the player welfare side, all of that actually comes together into overall success and building for the football club. And so, yeah, it is a delicate balance, but I think the more that we as a team can discipline ourselves to think long-term, it all starts to work together a bit more. And so, yeah, I'd say the big to-do list is optimizing, but the biggest thing inside that, there's lots of little things in that. I said that one, there's also some major things inside that. One is our stadium situation in Ireland that we need to figure out. We're working towards a new stadium, and there's obviously loads to pull together with the funding and the land and what that transition looks like. And so that's a huge project that we're putting a lot of brain damage towards at the moment, because Drogheda is a great town. It's the fastest growing town in Ireland. It's a large town. It's growing very rapidly, really because of how rapidly Dublin is growing.
Yep.
And that's a situation where we're really just massively under capacity at our stadium. Like, we need more seats. We need more concessions and ability to generate additional match day revenue. And it's just, it kind of sucks because the stadium is loads of character and personality. It's a really cool old ground to be in, but where the club has grown to the level where it's not fit for purpose anymore. So inside this kind of overall optimization thing I'm talking about, the stadium in Drogheda is something we're putting some real thought towards.
So when's your next roadie?
Tuesday. I'll go to Denmark, fly overnight Tuesday, and in Denmark for next week, and then we'll head to Walsall for a home game against Colchester on the Saturday. So, and then home on Sunday. So.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your hyper busy schedule to break everything down so folks can get acquainted with what we know in pieces with our time that we've spent with Walsall and the time that we've spent with Drogheda. And obviously, it's fun for us to be able to kind of see what's going on and see the development there as well, and open up those windows for our audience, obviously, here in the United States. I can't thank you enough for taking time to kind of put the top end conversation to all of the pieces that we've been talking about. Now, I can't thank you enough for this, Ben. It's been a real education. And for me personally, to find out the why and to find out the how that's going on there at Trivela, I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Well, appreciate it, Jones. Enjoyed chatting with you today, and let's do it again.
Absolutely. So like I always tell everybody, where the garage door opener is, and where the key is under the mat. So if you ever want to just knock on the door, sit there and go, hey, we got something going on, that the door is open. You can drop by anytime, Ben. It's great to see you, my friend. Be safe traveling over there. And we're going to be keeping an eye on what's going on and be watching games whenever we can and find out what's going on with everybody overseas. Thanks for dropping by the morning show.
Thanks, John.
There we go. That's Ben Boycott. And he is founding director and CEO, Trivela Group, based in Birmingham. And they are part of the multi-club ownership model that has Silkeborg in Denmark, Drogheda in Ireland, Walsall in England, and in Togo as well, with what you're seeing with Trivela in Togo. So if you want to find out more, they've got a corporate website, and you can go and find out about all of the different clubs. It's trivelagroup.com, and you can go and see what's going on there with them. And like I said, it was great to be able to catch up with Ben, because I think we had to schedule this about a month ago because he's so busy and flying around all over the place. And like I said, he's like leaving, to go overseas to see what's going on at Silkeborg, and then going to see what's up with Walsall and Colchester United. So yes, I am slightly jealous of that. And we got to find out when these, this is there are times where and Jason mentioned this in Soccer Over There last night. There are a couple of times this year where the Tuesday 2:45 Eastern kick will be Walsall matches. And it'll be an opportunity for us to go to the brew house and watch the Walsall matches and catch up with them and see what's going on. As right now they're at the top of the table in EFL League 2 and are chasing after promotion to League 1. So it'll be fun to continue that watch. And yes, I could not leave Nofo Brewing the last time I was there without getting the Walsall jersey. And I know that I'm probably going to end up buying a lot more stuff from Walsall and having it here in the office. And the boss will probably wear all the Walsall gear first because that's usually how it goes. So I can't thank Ben enough for that. And we're going to, now that it's at 10:30, we do have a bit of an update from Tom Bogert now about the North Carolina FC situation as his conversations continue to evolve this morning. Let me get you into the second the second conversation and thoughts that Tom had. It's a bit of an update, and it's steering itself toward the new Division I aspect of North Carolina FC. So to start, Bogert reported about an hour ago, once again, they're not fielding a team in the USL Championship in 2026. They have the playoff game against Rhode Island FC this weekend, just to kind of recap everything. Sources expect that the club will finish their playoff run this year in USL Championship. Players with contracts now end after 2 months. So the updated story, as of about a half hour ago, finished third in the Eastern Conference. They've got Rhode Island FC on Saturday. Once again, sources are anticipating that the club is going to finish the playoff run. All players under contract released and can sign elsewhere once the playing time is done this season. Any player with a guaranteed contract through 26 will now end after 25, and they'll get 2 months' salary instead. Sources added North Carolina has applied for membership into USL's new Division I league set to start in 28. Club's plan is to wait until then to field a men's team again. North Carolina FC's current USL membership is due to expire after this season. They're working on a stadium solution for Division I as well. No guarantee it'll get membership. USL believes that the market is one that would make sense in Division I. And once again, still waiting for comment from North Carolina FC and from the USL. And once again, remember, it's been owned by Steve Malik, who also owns the Courage. That has happened since 2015. And it was starting off as Carolina Railhawks. They 2017, they go to NCFC, hoping to become an MLS expansion club. That did not happen. Now you have the idea that North Carolina FC, in whatever form they plan to be in. So Cary Football Club, or North Carolina FC playing in Cary, North Carolina, their membership ends in USL Championship at the end of this season. Now it appears they're going to try and wait and regroup and be a part of the Division I league in USL that starts in 2028. So they're going to be around as an entity and a venue after this season when they are no longer part of USL Championship. And it is going to be them applying for membership into the Division I league, but they have to come up with a larger stadium than they have in Cary, North Carolina. Wake Med Soccer Park. So what's the current capacity at Wake Med in Cary? So let's check it really quickly here. First Horizon Stadium at Wake Med, currently listed capacity of 10,000. And so if I'm not mistaken, you've got to be at least 15 to satisfy a Division I component. And it is also a 23-year-old facility that cost $14 million to make, and then another $6 million in expansion. So they have invested almost $21 million in the stadium itself to get it to 10,000, which is where it currently is. But apparently after this year, North Carolina FC is going to cease to exist as a USL Championship club, and they're going to lie in wait as an ownership group and a market until 2028 and hope that they will be allowed into the USL Division I grouping. And we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see if we can catch up with folks and see once we know more information, we'll try and catch up with folks and maybe have them on either tomorrow late Thursday or on Thursday in the 9 o'clock hour to kind of lay things out as we know them there in the Raleigh-Durham area. So that is the update that we have on what's going on with North Carolina FC, as it appears they're going to go dormant for 3 years. 2 years probably, with a year runway to make sure that they're a part of the Division I aspect in USL Division I. and then figure out the stadium situation and go from there. So that's where we are right now, according to Tom Bogert, and the future of North Carolina FC. So we'll keep an eye on that, and let's see if there is any collateral issue with North Carolina Courage in the NWSL, or if they're just going to continue to be, and it's just two separate aisles in the grocery store, and Courage are what Courage are. North Carolina FC is going to cease as they are. So we'll keep an eye on that as we go. All right. It is bottom of the hour. Time to catch up with our friend Jason Stevens and find out what's going on in his mind when it comes to the economics of soccer. So we go from economics on bad news to economics in the legal system overseas and finding out about what's going on with PSR in the Premier League. Here's our conversation with Jason Stevens as we continue to find out about the economics of soccer. So our conversation this week, when you sent your notes, I think it's brought to us by UEFA this week. It's like UEFA here. So it's like the shopping list is like UEFA 1 and 2. We did talk outside of your segment last week. I just kind of glossed over it a little bit about where a club in particular wants €5 billion because of something that didn't happen. What's the details here?
Yeah, so look, we know that the much talked about Super League that was here in 2021, spearheaded by Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Juventus. A few deals have gone on in the last few weeks, months, which sort of saw Barcelona allegedly resign from A22, the sports management company behind the Super League. And Juventus pulled out a couple of months ago due to their financial crisis and due to be hit with some financial miscalculations again in January. It's not saying that there's a timely pullout from the Super League, but however, Real Madrid were left to stand alone. Now, obviously, in the Spanish courts, or I say obviously, Real Madrid have been still conducting affairs against UEFA, and the Spanish court upheld Real Madrid's recent ruling that UEFA has acted illegally by basically violating competition law, specifically Articles 101 and 102, which is a treaty on functioning of in the EU on controlling and dominating its abusive position. So anyway, it's alleged that Real Madrid are claiming around 3.4 billion in English pounds in lost revenues. And they're saying it's because they're the revenues that would have been generated if the Super League had officially been launched. So the court confirmed that there was a serious infringement of EU competition law by UEFA, and that has led the door to open. Now, this is also precedent as Google was actually fined 2.4 billion for similar competition law violation, breaches, etc. And this could be used as the benchmark. Now, what Real Madrid are also arguing was that last year in 2024 and throughout of 2025, that Real Madrid actually proposed some changes to the current Champions League format where they wanted to divide the 36 teams up into two groups of 18. One of them, Group 1, which contained the 6 champions of the top 6 leagues with the 12 best teams. And in Group 2 would be the remaining 18 teams. And then they would continue with the same 8 rounds, etc. But one of the reasons why UEFA have turned it down is because they have just basically, I think we've just seen them form a new joint venture with UEFA, ECA, stroke the new European governing body, as we touched upon it last week, but with Relevant Sports, right? And Relevant Sports now going to be controlling the media rights for all their European competitions and other competitions from 2027 to 2033. That also coincides with FIFA's new arrangement with DAZN, right? They somehow sponsored them £1 billion last year for the Club World Cup. And conveniently, now they're partnering up with FIFA Plus TV, and they're going to be relaunching a whole range of new services across the world, obviously to help Saudi Arabia promote their influence, etc., etc. So that's where we are at the moment. I won't put it past Real Madrid to succeed and to reach a compromise, with them being the only club, well, say unofficially still linked with the A22. And I say that lightly because I don't think any club has officially denounced itself on the registration company details of the A22, but we have seen that a number of clubs have publicly announced the verbal statement saying that they have come away from the Super League. But let's see. If Real Madrid are successful, I wonder how many other clubs might come out of the woodwork and consider their position.
Yeah, to your point, Relevant CEO Daniel Silman serving as exec chair of the new company, Relevant president and partner Boris Gartner serving as CEO, based in London, additional offices to follow New York, Miami, Doha, Qatar, Nyon, Switzerland, and Southeast Asia. They have recruited a dedicated leadership team, and this is from Sports Business Journal, for the new business that includes former team marketing manager, director of media rights Oliver Holland as chief media rights officer. Team marketing, where Holland spent 12 years, managed commercial rights for UEFA's men's competitions for 3 decades before losing the U.S. business to Relevant beginning this past season for the rights beginning 27 and 28. You have a former PGA Tour EVP as now CCO, former DAZN finance director as CFO, former F1 chief counsel as chief legal officer, a former Disney VP of communications as chief communications and marketing, former DAZN VP, SVP of people and reward, Georgie Cleve as chief people officer, former Heineken global sponsorship lead Benjamin Blanco as commercial strategy, partnerships, sponsorships, and licensing, and former DAZN EVP global head of rights Tom Burrows as director of strategy and partnership operations, expected to begin the sales process for the next 2 commercial cycles each this summer. In the U.S., CBS, meaning Paramount, has the English language rights locked up through 29-30. Televisa, though, however, Spanish language only runs through 26-27. So that might be the next date on the calendar, at least when it comes to rights in this hemisphere, 26 and 27 for the Spanish rights.
And don't forget, Relevant Sport is controlled by Stephen Ross, right? The owner of the Miami Dolphins, etc. So, he tried to launch the summer series with the Premier League over here. So he's got quite a dominant position anyway, and he has proved to be quite successful at what he does. So, I'm not surprised that sort of got in the way with the new proposals, i.e. from Real Madrid, etc. But it'll be interesting to see which direction this takes. Are they just looking for some healthy compensation, or is there some serious movement to restructure the Champions League even further? Now, my sources suggest that there is a little bit of that they're happy with the Champions League format. No one's denying that, but they are liking the fact that there could be more games. So I wouldn't be surprised if another 2 games get added to this competition in the next couple of years. I would say, though, by 2029, I think that's when we'll see it.
Nothing like adding more games and more revenue, stuff that you can pull apart to the side and sit there and say, well, hey, if you want to bid on this first premiere of the cycle, hey, this is a separate deal if you want the kickoff.
Exactly.
All of the splintering of the games to come up with added revenue and added ideas.
You got the new what we have in here, the Super Cup type thing where you've got the winners of the Champions League versus Europa League winners over in UEFA. That's going to be expanded to 4 teams, where we're going to see both finalists for the Champions League, Conference League, Europa League, and play a 14 tournament somewhere over in America come 2029.
All right, so what's next on your list of things to discuss, sir?
Well, while we're continuing with the theme of UEFA, we've got another £20 million potential lawsuit against UEFA by a company called Matchvision, a Chilean sports consultancy which claims to have created this Champions League format. I think there's been many people in their own bedrooms that have created an innovative format, playing computer games, etc. But hey, apparently they copyrighted this back in 2006, and they actually called it the POTS concept. And now they're seeking £20 million in damages. And this is expected to go to Switzerland court in Lausanne, actually now, and we're probably going to receive a judgment come February, March time next year. Interesting. That it doesn't seem like it's the most unique format that's out there, but somebody had claimed to, I suppose somebody had to create it, right? So the fact they had the foresight to patent it, to copyright it, that deserves kudos in its own right.
Yep. The Athletic has its Matchvision's case transferred to a court in Lausanne, Switzerland, where UEFA is based. They have not yet, as of the end of the month, been formally notified of the action, but once it is, UEFA gets 20 business days to respond. So basically a month of actual calendar. And so there's a connection with the ESL cases that it was that breakaway threat in 21, where you had the revamp, Swiss model, all those kinds of things, the POTS concept. Chile in 2006, and it also claims they presented the idea to UEFA in 2013. I mean, literally, this sounds to me, this legitimately sounds to me like, if you come up with if you collaborate on a song or something like that, and you claim to be the writer of the tune, and the person that might have gotten the lyrics sits there, and they take the lyrics and they turn it into this really successful song. You've got to figure out, okay, I have to prove that I was the one that wrote the song in the first place. That's what it sounds like to me here.
Yeah, I suppose that's why we have copyright law, right? So somebody has probably logged this somewhere back in 2006, and if there's some evidence that this is identical, I mean, it's got to be identical, right? You can't just take a piece of this competition and claim it's yours, because it's got the underbelly of pretty much every competition format that's ever been, So I'm not too sure how successful it's going to be. But again, some copyright, there may be something there, so maybe they won't get the full compensation. But who's to say that doing this might not get them £1 million, which is more than what they probably would have got.
Match Vision's claim is exactly for €20,005,551, and the gentleman who is coming forward with the suit, he wants €200,000 personally, also asking for interest on the sums for last year, this year, next year. And so they're anticipating that UEFA is not going to just kind of sit there and say, well, yeah, we'll go ahead. No, this one looks like this one might be headed to the courts for a while. That's my gut.
I would, if I was UEFA, I'd change the format. Not massively, but just tweak it, right? And then, you can just, if there is to be a case, then you only have to pay out in 2 years rather than 5, 10 years or lifetime. So I'm not too sure where that's going to go, though. But let's see. Either way, it's going to dent the purse, and no doubt the people that will miss out will be the foundation arm of UEFA, FIFA, etc. That's where they take the money from.
Premier League, and you had mentioned to me that there might be some changes coming to the rules of engagement when it comes to PSR, profit, and sustainability. What are you hearing there?
Yeah, so actually this next week or so, we're going to see the Premier League and its voting members. For those that don't know, the members of the Premier League are its 20 owners, and we need 14 votes to change anything. And there's 2 financial models being proposed. One of them has got a lot of support, the other one hasn't. But the first one that's got the support is what we call SCR, the squad cost ratio, which basically is going to limit spending to 85% of the club's total revenue, which they can allocate on wages, transfers, agent fees, etc., etc. Now, at the moment, it's we've got this 105. We've got PSR, which means that owners can lose 105 million over 3 years, providing the owners guarantee 90 million, 30 million a year, so they can attribute 15 million loss against the club. But in this one, basically, it's a similar concept to UEFA, where UEFA, for those clubs that are in UEFA competition, which is currently 9 in the Premier League, they have to conform to 70% of their ratio. Well, this allows clubs to spend a little bit more. The idea is it's supposed to try and breed a little bit more competitive balance within the Premier League, but the problem is with this, it's still, when the bigger clubs are generating 600 to 700 million and you're allowed to spend 85% of that on your squad, if the clubs are generating 678 million and the middle clubs are only generating 200 million, then it's just going to breed competition imbalance, right? So that's model number 1, whereas model number 2 sort of favours the other end of the table and actually restricts the top clubs. So what they're sort of predicting here is something called the TBA, which is top to bottom anchoring system, which is based on the broadcasting money that the bottom team will earn in the Premier League. At the moment, it's 110 million, so a ratio of times 5. So clubs will be allocated 510 million. Now, that will benefit all the clubs up from 20 all the way up to about 6. And then, but what that does on the big clubs like Liverpool, Arsenal, Man United, Man City means that they won't be able to compete with the big clubs of Europe, right? Because we've started to see their clubs now. Real Madrid, Bayern Munich yesterday, they've sort of announced that they're turning over €1 billion now euros in revenue. So if they're already at that, I mean, obviously the big clubs are only concerned about UEFA, the Super League, stroke better competitions there, whereas the clubs in the Premier League want to try and bridge that gap and have that opportunity to compete in those competitions, right? So they need a bigger gap. So Premier League is at a real, I say, fragile state at the moment, because I'm not sure they're going to find a model that's going to suit both, but they're going to have to come to some sort of compromise at the moment. I mean, listen, if me and you were in the room and we were sort of suggesting ideas, and I'm in favour of creating a once every, we have a leap year, right, every 4 years, maybe a model like that where it allows club owners just to spend an extra 100, 200 million if they want to every 4 years, then that way it helps potentially bridge the gap. And as long as they don't attribute it to the club, maybe it gives them the opportunity to show that they really do want to invest and bridge that gap in the competition element. But I suppose governance here is to basically encourage sustainability. We don't see many clubs in the Premier League suffering from that. We had Portsmouth back in the early part of the century, but since then, any clubs that get into distressed state, they tend to get bought out for a healthy sum anyway. So, this is an interesting one, because the Premier League wants to stay top of the curve, right? And that means in Europe, and it's in terms of its broadcasting deals on a global scale as well. And it needs that competitive balance within that league. Yes, you've got 6 clubs that are competitive financially, but the others are not. So how do they bridge that gap? And that's, every league's got that challenge. I get that, but you're trying to make a model which is, the bottom line is as well, John, if you think about it, the Premier League is the golden circle to pretty much Europeans' ecosystem financial model for the next year, right? Because without their £3 billion that they spend on average every year now in the transfer market, the European ecosystem needs the Premier League to be competitive in that area. So, they've got to try and find, I suppose, a system there. Otherwise, the rest of Europe could suffer more than the Premier League clubs,
And, well, then let me play devil's advocate here a little bit, where you have those big 6, but then you have a situation like we have at Bournemouth, where Bournemouth in their scouting system has found those diamonds in the rough, those undervalued players that they bring in under Andoni Iraola, and then they're there for a year or two, and then they get to sell them on for massive amounts to other clubs. You pretty much can look at Kirkesh as a recent example, and that Semenyo will be an example coming up in a couple of years. So is there any thought to individual responsibility, regardless of where, whether it's the an SCR, the squad cost ratio, or the TBA, if you're not in that top 6, to just sit there and go, well, then scout better,
Yeah, but the other side is, the other side of that coin, John, is that, yes, you can credit Bournemouth, Brentford and Brighton, we call them the 3 Bs, right, for their innovative statistical models that they've got for transfer. And that definitely is part of their revenue generation model. But at the same time, these clubs are having to sell these assets, right, because they've got to try and bridge that gap. So on one hand, it's a real slow catch-up, right, because they produce these talents and then they can't keep them, because they've got to sell them in order to bridge that gap. So they're moving them on. And, we've seen with Brighton that Chelsea tend to favour Brighton players in recent years. And, Bournemouth, yes, they've started to sell. Brentford have been doing this for a few years as well. So, yeah, we applaud that innovation. But surely, if we want to make the league competitive, these clubs have got to keep hold of those players, and then to see, what they could actually do if given 2 or 3 years together, how much they can develop that cohesion on the pitch to be competitive. So, yeah, but I get it. That is part of football, and it has been part of football for the last 100 years. There is a pecking order, whether we like it or not. And if Real Madrid come knocking on your door for your player, then yeah, you're going to be, you're going to have to succumb to it. As we all have over the last few years. So it's a hard one, isn't it? But unless you operate, maybe there's something in the MLS, right, where they've got this budget restrictions, etc. But the problem is, we propose those salary caps over here, and then the players are going to take you to court anyway, because they want to earn their maximum call. So clubs one way.
Restraint of trade, absolutely. That was going to be the lawsuit. You mentioned sustainability of clubs and such, and keeping yourself afloat. Circling back to Sheffield Wednesday, mentioned on Monday's show, where Mike Ashley is looking maybe to kick the tires on Sheffield. Basically, he gave, and what you have to do in this 28-day window that we've been discussing is you have to have proof of funds to Begbie's trainer and sit there, and then they can sit there and sign off on you. And so Ashley's like, well, tell you what, I'll do 10 million when they're kind of looking for 50. This kind of seems like this is something that's right up, Ashley's alley, where you sit there and you want to offer pennies on the dollar, try to get something, and then maybe have it for a couple of years and flip it. How serious do we take somebody like a Mike Ashley, where it's like, yeah, I'll offer you 10 when you're looking for something bigger?
Well, we know what Mike does. I mean, I don't know him personally, but we know what he does. He buys distressed assets, right? He knows a potential value opportunity. So if he's going to try and get it for as cheap as chips, then we know what he's going to do. He's going to run it financially sustainable. He's not really going to invest in it. The problem with Mike Ashley was that, Sheffield Wednesday needs investment in the training ground, it needs investment in the stadium, and it needs investment in the squad. If he wants to get maximum value on that, he's going to have to upgrade all of those facilities, and that's going to take a little bit more than the 10 million that he's proposing. Now, it may be that the 10 million is the bargain price, and then he's got a plan set out for stadium and renovation and training and squad, etc. Or it might be that he's just chancing his arm. But our understanding is that there's 4 or 5, real serious bidders in there. And we know that John Textor's offered 40 million. So, Mike Ashley is going to up his game a little bit there. But we also believe that there's a couple of American groups that have stayed anonymous at the moment, and they seem to be the front runners. Mike Ashley's just releasing, I think, statements out there to make himself relevant. He's tried to buy a couple of clubs in the last few years. But unfortunately with Mike, his reputation at Newcastle is going to stay with him. I don't think that's going to go away. Listen, I appreciate Sheffield Wednesday fans will go, listen, we'll take a Mike Ashley over the current owner. But the reality is Sheffield Wednesday is a good asset. Somebody will buy it, someone will invest in it, and someone will turn that back around again. So, the fans have got to be a little bit patient, and they're in a good position now in the sense of, it's up for sale and it's going to have new owners by the end of the year.
What else are you keeping your eye on in the next 7 days before we reconvene?
Well, I think, like they said, the big one is we're expecting the Manchester City case obviously that's been due to come out for the last year, right? But they are, the news is sort of murmuring towards an outcome coming in the next few weeks. That's going to probably align with the PSR stroke squad cost rules, whatever goes into that way. And then once that takes off, we're probably going to see, a new wave of investment in multi-club models again. I'm hearing, yes, Liverpool, this, that, but Arsenal are also tinkering now with a second club. So, yeah, I've just had a couple of sources say that conversations are underway, but, it's all NDA at the moment. They don't want to keep it quiet, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks, maybe this time next week, we'll have a bit more murmurings on that. The good news is, since our Mafia story last week, I haven't found a horse's head next to me yet. So maybe because I'm moving around in all these hotels, they can't keep up with me.
There you go. Absolutely. And yeah, so we'll keep an eye on Kroenke Sports and Entertainment. Absolutely. As always, my friend, it's great to see you. Thanks for the intel as we continue to pursue the economics of sports and multi-club ownership and all of the things that makes the world go around that we need to find out about. As always, my friend, great to see you. We'll catch up with you again next week.
Yeah, appreciate it, John. Thank you.
That's our friend Jason Stevens, the football consultant, and getting to find out what's going on in and around the planet with Jason is always an absolute treat when it comes to finding out about what's going on in and around. You hit the button. It's just, I hit a button and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, yeah, that's going to work. No, I'm just going to maximize it. There we go. All right, fine. All right, so that's where we are. And as always, it's great to catch up with Jason and everybody overseas to find out how things are over there every single week when it comes to the economics of soccer. And they're fun conversations to have, and we are incredibly blessed. That's not what I hit. That is not what I hit, people. I did not do that. So it's me and buttons. Nothing like trying to hit buttons. All right. So as always, it's great to find out what's going on in Jason's mind. Thank you, W1G. I know, Derek. It's me and buttons. It's just one of those things. So we always try to wrap up or have Jason Stevens to kind of wrap things up from a guest perspective on Tuesdays, and we'll be catching up with him again next week. All right. So what do we need to know? Today is Champions League, and we got the U17s going on right now. Venezuela, about 2 minutes ago in Qatar, hit just an absolute rocket from an acute angle. They now lead England by the score of 1-0 on the Big 55. Other scores this morning, Switzerland over Ivory Coast 4-1. Brazil put 7 on Honduras. South Korea 2-1 over Mexico. Egypt 4-1 over Haiti. Germany in the 55th is leading Colombia by the score of 1-0. That one is on Universo. Venezuela is once again scored just now against England. It's 1-0 in Group E. And then it is Korea, DPR, and El Salvador. They are goalless in the 12th. Indonesia with a quick goal on Zambia in the 12th. They lead that one 1-0. Once again, remember the U.S. start their run tomorrow morning, 10:15 in Group I against Burkina Faso. That is on FS2 Universo and Peacock. And so once again, just to remind you as to who is on that U17 roster for the United States, there are some names that are familiar, and so it's been fun to see names that that are a part of the process when it comes to the U17 World Cup, and so it's going to be the first time tomorrow, 10:15, that it is going to be available for all of us to keep an eye on what's going on. The men's national team, once again, in net Jack Courtcamp, who you know from Sporting Kansas City, William Lodmel, who is from born in Portugal, but he is attached to the U.S. U17s, and Aiden Stokes with Red Bulls. Defenders, Christopher Cupps, that you know from Chicago Fire 2, Jordan Griffin from Philadelphia Union 2, Pedro Guimaraes from Orange County FC, Ramiz Hamuda from Birmingham Legion, Enrique Martinez from LAG, Gio Villa from RSL. Midfield, Maximo Carrizo, NYCFC. You've seen him if you've been watching the twos. Luca Moisa from RSL, Cooper Sanchez, Atlanta United, Kevin Sullivan from Philadelphia, Jude Terry and Mateo Sequeiros from LAG, Jude Terry from LAFC. Your forwards, Chase Adams from Crew, Matisse Albert from Borussia Dortmund, born in El Segundo, California. Then Fasa Burkimas from Charlotte FC. You know him from the time that we got to spend calling the matches against Crown Legacy. Julian Hall from Red Bulls 2, Jameer Johnson from Union 2, and Kellen LeBlanc from Philadelphia Union 2, and they are part of the World Cup qualifying roster as well. So that is that's where things are. Once again, tomorrow morning it is 10:15 in Al Rayyan, FS2 Universo, and Peacock. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, Juice Box is going into Champions League today, and then we'll get into what to watch, where to watch it, and how to watch it, amongst all the other things going on. And we got into it a little bit last night, so we'll see how the juice boxes may have changed overnight when it comes to the Champions League. Venezuela has just scored again, so heading into stoppage time in the first 45. 2 minutes have been added. Venezuela is now up 2-0. 12:45, Napoli favored against Eintracht Frankfurt at a -159. Arsenal a -417 at Slavia Prague, who's a +1251. 3 o'clock, all the other matchups. So if you want to go Golasso, you certainly can. It is Atleti. They are -417 against Royal Union Saint-Gilloise. Saint-Gilloise, by the way, a +1017. Bodo Glimt favored at home against Monaco at a +120. Monaco a +197. Juve favored at home on the plus side against Sporting at a +106. The friends from Portugal, Sporting CP, are a +266. Liverpool, slight favorite at home against Real Madrid, even though they've lost 4 of their last 6. Real Madrid's won 13-14. Real Madrid a +163 on the road as a dog. Liverpool a +144. Olympiacos favored at a +152, hosting PSV at a +166. PSG, and this is really your matchup of the 3 o'clocks. If you weren't going to be locked into Liverpool and Real Madrid, then you're going to be paying attention to PSG and Bayern. Just have 2 screens up. It's probably the easiest way. PSG slightly favored. Literally, the juice box purveyors threw a blanket over the whole thing. They're within the margin of error. PSG a +156, Bayern a +159. Your draws a +273. Spurs, big favorite against FC Copenhagen. Tottenham is a -238. Draws a +373. And the FC Copenhagen to win is a +673. So what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. Tomorrow, league phase continues in the in Champions League. CBS Sports Network has Napoli, Frankfurt, Spurs, and Copenhagen. FS2, once again, England, Venezuela is the tail end of their doubleheader. Telemundo had Mexico and South Korea on this morning, 2 to NA, Slavia Prague and Arsenal at 12:45, Liverpool, Real Madrid at 3. Unimas simulcasting Slavia Prague and Arsenal. Univision is it simulcasting Liverpool and Real Madrid. All the Champions League games are on Paramount Plus. 3 matches in the English Championship are coming up, 2 at 2:45. Ipswich, Watford, Leicester, Middlesbrough. Coventry City and Sheffield United are at 3 on the women's side. On the Plus, Northern Super League, Vancouver and Ottawa, there at 10 o'clock. Also, if you are locked into your favorite colleges as we get into postseason play, keep an eye on their social media channels, and you can find out if they're still active, where those matches are. And I would probably start with the Plus for the matches themselves, but go to your favorite college team and their social media platform to find out the times as to the when and the where that you can watch them. Let's take a quick tour and find out what's going on news-wise, see if we've missed anything. Garrett Southgate says he's done with doing national team managing. So he's pretty much done with that. Once again, remember Trent Alexander-Arnold and the context of Liverpool and Real Madrid. He gets to head back, and apparently folks have just decided to vandalize a mural near Anfield. Grow up. Let's see. David Beckham was knighted by King Charles in a Windsor Castle ceremony a handful of hours ago. You have, let's see, Thomas Frank, who is apparently already ruffling feathers with his roster at Spurs. And Wolves apparently were stunned that Gary O'Neill walked away. You know, they've let him go once. Gary O'Neill kind of was interested. Then they're like, Gary O'Neill's kind of like, nah, I think I'm good. Now Wolves are apparently stunned, and Big Sam, Sam Allardyce, has decided to continue to put his CV in the ring. So keep an eye on that. Once again, we talk about folks that just want to put their name out there to put their name out there. Big Sam is doing that in this particular cycle. So keep an eye on that. 6 England players joined 3 from Spain in the FIFA Pro Women's starting 11. It is Hampton, Bronze, Bright, Williamson, Russo, and Kelly from England. You have Bonmati, Putelis, and Battle from Spain, Chebak from Morocco, and Barbara Banda from Zambia. That is your 11. The men's 11, by the way, Donnarumma, Van Dijk, Hakimi, Mendes, Bellingham, Cole Palmer, Pedri, Vitinha, Dembele, Mbappe, and Lamine Yamal. So that is that's the rundown of the news out of the Guardian. Let me check and see if there's any other breaking stuff that's going on that we might have missed. And once again, keep an eye on the situation at North Carolina FC, because it appears once again that it's going to be the team is disbanding and leaving USL Championship after this year, and they're looking to jump back in when the USL has their Division I league in 2028 if they cross all of the I's and hit all the boxes and everything. That's what they're aiming for. They have a stadium situation they have to address, among other things. But apparently next season, North Carolina FC, their license in USL Championship will have expired, and they are not going to be participating in USL Championship next year. We're going to try and effort Taylor Hodges and get his thoughts on the situation at North Carolina FC. Victor Gyökeres has been ruled out until after the international break with an injury. North London derby return is targeted, came off of halftime of Arsenal's win at Burnley, did not travel to Prague for the Champions League match. They're hopeful that Gyökeres will be ready by the end of the month, and hoping he can return alongside Gabriel Martinelli, neither of whom are going to be active for the matchup against Slavia Prague. Minor muscle issue for Gyökeres, and that was in the matchup against Burnley. Martinelli has been out since pulling up with a muscular issue in the win over Crystal Palace. Odegaard, Havertz, Madueke could also return by then. Arteta said last week, difficult to judge time frame with 2 weeks of an international break still to come. He admitted his concerns with the signing, not travel, with the £55 million signing, not joining the squad going forward. Wolves might be, the name that was floated this morning was Eric Ten Hag, but that's apparently very unlikely in this case. If I'm anybody, and we're talking about Wolves, why would I go to Wolves? Considering how many dudes they've let go and where the situation is with Wolves when they have a manager. You sign Vitor Pereira to a 3-year extension. But then, 45 days into the season, he's out. Gary O'Neill pulls out of talks. Jeff Shee, the chairman, sporting director Domenico Tetti, and Matt Jackson, the director of development, drawing up a short list. Influence of super agent Jorge Mendez remains in the background. Pereira was his client. It didn't work out. Rob Edwards Wolves are interested, appeared to distance himself from leaving Middlesbrough to take the job on Monday. One game to get through before the international break, and so they can kind of kick the tires on folks. But honestly, if I'm out there, I ain't touching Wolves with a 10-foot pole. Not happening. So Gary O'Neill pulled out yesterday. And so, yeah, if I'm anywhere close, and Wolves fans groups have pulled together in an open letter to Fosun outlining their concerns when it comes to Wolves in and of itself, they're just going to continue to be concerned because I do not see this changing with Wolves. Once again, the manager listing with Fosun as their owners. Let's go back. Kenny Jackett left in 2016. Zenga lasted 17 matches. Paul Lambert lasted 33. Nuno lasted almost 200. That gets you to 2021. Bruno Lage lasted 51. Lopetegui lasted 27. Gary O'Neill lasted 63. Sacked December 15th of 24. Vitor Pereira lasted 38. He was 14, 6, and 18. And it's been a miserable start this year. So, and this is competitive first team matches over time. If I'm on a short list, I don't want it. Unless I'm really to a point to where I'm that desperate for a paycheck, knowing I'm going to get sacked because of the inconsistency of the ownership group when it comes to keeping managers. I don't want it. I wouldn't take it. Not interested. And I will be interested. I will be intrigued to see who does take it at this point. That's kind of where I am in all of this. I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't recommend that you take it. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy chasing after other things. Please do. So, morning, Abby. Morning, Ricky. Morning, Derek. Yes. Yeah. I mean, 45, literally, David, 45 days. There's like 45 days within the season. So, literally, Vitor Pereira with this year. So, he signs a 3-year extension. He signed a 3-year extension. And the hook in that was this, that if you get sacked, we don't have to pay you the full thing. We don't have to pay you the full ride if we sack you and you don't make it to the end of the deal. I don't know why Vitor Pereira took that deal, but anyway. Signed a 3-year extension, wording in the contract, they didn't have to pay him the parachute payment on the way out the door. 0-2-8. 0-2-8 this year for Wolves. And they are 8 points adrift of safety after the first 10 matches. So you are just over 25% of the schedule done. You're 0-2-8. You've only scored 7 goals all year. Forrest has only scored 7 goals all year, but there's other stuff in play. Next up for Wolves is Chelsea. Then they have the international break. Good luck. And I know that the fans there for Wolves and the fans that make it to the Molineux, they are just as diehard as everybody else. But literally, Wolves are like Watford, just up in the Prem. Watford in their managerial situation, it's just like, oh, we'll sack you. No, we'll sack you too. And so it's getting to that point with Wolves. 0-2-8 to start the season. And as we say, that's not good. Yeah, David, what is this number? What is this number? And for the record, the matchup this weekend involving Wolves is the late game on Saturday. They are at Chelsea, and they were plus 735. So they probably are going into the November international break with 9 losses in their first 11 matches. 9 in their first 11. They've lost 3 in a row after getting 2 draws. So literally they started the year 0-5. They get 2 draws. Now they've lost 3 in a row. Scored 7, given up 22, and you are 8 points adrift right now. I mean, at least with Forrest and Sean Dyche, you got a point last time out. You're 4 points back of Burnley. West Ham got a win that they really needed because they only had 4 points going into the weekend. Wolves, 10 matches in, are adrift. And that's not good. And like I said, I wouldn't recommend you for the Wolves job. I don't care who's listening. I don't care who's watching. I wouldn't recommend you for the Wolves gig. Would not. That's your PSA for the morning. So Champions League all day, all afternoon, starting at 12:45 and 3. Group stage continues there. 3 o'clock, you'll probably have Golasso someplace that you'll have to use as a whip around function. If you missed soccer over there last night, go back and listen to it. And it was a conversation that got derailed when we were talking about Marcus Rashford, and I tried to compare it to ham and pineapple on a pizza. So you've got that activity today as well. Keeping an eye on the U17s. And once again, tomorrow morning, 10:15 and hour number 2 will be when we're keeping an eye on that in depth. Tomorrow, once again, Tyler joining us at 9:15. Hopefully Dylan Butler joining us at 10. And we'll try to have some insight on the North Carolina FC situation. That would be in the 10:30 segment. And so we'll keep an eye on that. Chris Doran joining us in hour number 1 on Thursday, the play-by-play voice of the Columbus Crew. Nino and Nico in the Power Hour on Thursday. Friday, we get you ready for match days 3. It is Lucas Panzica for 104.5 The Zone in Nashville, and he'll be on at 9:05, efforting our friends from Beyond Goals Mentoring. We'll see who visits from Major League Soccer and Apple TV at 10. And then at 10:30, it is Will Pelagic, play-by-play voice for Charlotte, hopping on to preview Charlotte and NYC's match day 3. Also, once again, we're catching up with Kate Ward on Thursday afternoon as they get ready to chase after yet another gold medal for the deaf national team, and she's hanging up her boots. She and 2 of her teammates and both coaches, they are hanging up their boots after this tournament. So it is a last dance, and we'll catch up with Kate and find out what it's going to be like with this last camp and all these lasts as they chase after yet another title for the U.S. national team. That's another go-round of SDH AM. Thanks for dropping by. Thanks to Jason Stevens. Thanks to the Trivela Group's founding director and CEO, Ben Boycott. Thanks to Max Anderson from Chicago Fire and WLS, and thanks to Kacey White. It was a full show today. A lot of information. We're following the North Carolina FC situation. We'll keep you posted on that, and we'll have that tomorrow with Champions League and get you ready for all the other things down the line. So it's another go-round of SDH AM back in a little less than 22 at 9:05 a.m. Eastern Time in your midweek for a Wall Pass Wednesday where things traditionally go off the rails. What else is new? For everybody here, to all of you out there, thanks for dropping by. Mucho plati, all played safe. And it's the end of the show. Now I get to play this, and we'll see if it plays from the beginning.